And 15, 16 came along and we were still in a bit of a pickle. And it starts to resonate with me that we've got to change something. I think we have alluded to the fact, I think it's like a bit of a volcano erupting with Ian's slot this morning, talking about the difficulties all around annual returns, which is only one aspect of what we do, but it's a big aspect of what we do. And it's starting to build up to a point where you must be thinking out there, well, this surely isn't the best way of doing things. And that's the thoughts I've been having. And it's about, okay then, that's a big change, but what do we do and how do we do it? And first of all, can we do it? I mean, we're in an era at the moment where everybody's saving money and everybody's cutting this and cutting that. And restructures, as you know, probably don't come cheap and all that kind of thing. And all these thought processes go through. But when you look at the demands that are upon us, and they are, such as the annual returns and the deadline, just that little window between end of May, hopefully end of May, as we were talking, and end of August, ain't long. It ain't long for any of us. You know, when you're sitting there in May looking forward to your summer holidays, it comes round pretty quick. And that's the time frame we're in. And let's face it, it's a holiday time. And so your staff are going on holiday and so are ours. And it's all that building in. But we're being driven. And we're being driven by a target that we've got to achieve. And so how do we do that? Now, okay, we had a bit of a license with the 31st of August, as we explained to you, or as I explained to you. But essentially we met that target, and we met that target because I had to take a tough decision. I had to say, right, in the office, the previous year we failed the target miserably, but we couldn't have achieved the target. We would have never achieved the target the previous year because the returns that Ian explained came late, but also our software system wasn't up to it. And because it was new, if you remember, and I gave you all that tale, but effectively it wasn't up to it. And so even if we'd have wanted, and all the employees had got their returns in time like they did this year in the same numbers, we still wouldn't have achieved the target because the software wouldn't have allowed us to do it. So we can kind of forgive that, and that was okay in the sense. It wasn't okay for the members, it wasn't okay for me, but it was okay in the sense that we had a reason for it. But we had to improve this year. Ian mentioned that the regulator said, okay, we'll let you off 1 year, but not 2 years running. And the argument wouldn't have worked a second year. I had to take the decision to say, right, okay then, we'll achieve that target and we'll put all our efforts into achieving it, which we did. But it came at a cost because we had to give up doing non-priority work. We had to stop doing work that we otherwise would have wanted to do and do it within our performance standards that we have under our customer charter and say, well, we can't do everything. So we stopped doing that work and we concentrated on this. And it was difficult. The guys that are in the room that work with me would attest that it's difficult because what they want to do is provide a service to the scheme members. They don't want to not do the work for the members because that's what they like to do. They like to achieve the targets that we set. And they had to give them up. And so it came at that cost. What it also came at, because we did achieve the target, is that we then had a backlog of work. So immediately that you say, right, great, we've done the annual returns, and that wasn't until October because we had a second run. We can now concentrate on the work that we've had to leave. And basically that's what we've done, and that's what we're doing now. But we're doing that using overtime. We're doing that at the cost of some other work that is now coming in, fresh work and so on. And we're going to be in a never-ending cycle. That cycle will repeat and repeat and repeat because the deadline is not going to change. It can't change, and I understand the reasons for the deadline because members do require that information earlier. I wish a few more members would actually read the statements, but that's a different matter. But nevertheless, we have to do something. We just can't continue doing that. And our staff can't continue to do that because they are so under pressure. They've been magnificent over these periods that we've had this. They've pulled together, they've achieved the things that we've put out them and demanded from them at really tough times, you know, because they're learning about the new scheme just as like everybody else and all that. But they've done all that, but we can't keep doing that to them. It's not fair. So we've got to do something about that. The first slide on here is something that I came about by accident. It's not that I used it for the arguments on restructure, well, that I was going to use it for the arguments on restructure, but I came about it. We do a scheme member AGM, annual fund meeting, should I say, and we did it here. And just look for interesting statistics to show to them, because we talk about the annual report and the work that we've done in the year and so on, and it's just trying for interest. And I celebrated my 40 years in pensions this year, and at thank you. And I'd done one previously where I'd done 1976 in the year that I joined. So just for something to do, I brought it up to 1996. Now, I've changed it here because the 1996 I used on that was from the 1995 valuation that we did in that year. So it weren't really 1996. But anyway, it served the purpose. But then this end column, which weren't there then, just kind of stood out. And it just gives you a bit of an idea of the change that we've gone through. And bear in mind, when change comes to local government pensions, it never takes anything away. It always adds. So when we have a new scheme, like we had 74, 86, 95, 98, 2008, 2014, it added things to it. The old rules always stay where they are because people have retired and left under those old rules. And so basically we still have to understand those rules because we still have to apply them when the time comes. So it's been adding on. So basically, I'm not going to go through everything, but if you look at total members between 95 valuation and 2016 valuation, it's gone up by 136%. And this is, you know, it's not active members. Active members have increased for sure. But they've been pretty static for a few years, around just under and just over the 50,000 mark. And that's kind of remained static. But it's as pensioners leave, they're still a member. As active members leave, they become a pensioner, they're still a member. And as they leave and become deferred members, they're still a member. So the number of members that we have to service increases. And then, if you look a bit further down towards the active employers, thanks to our academy friends, hello, we've increased massively, and it's still increasing. That number is going to be over 400, it's probably over 400 now. So if I'm here next year, that's going to be mid-400s, and it's going to keep going, and it's going to keep going until they stop, basically. But when we have a new employer, we might not have any more active members because one shifts from the council to that employer, but we have another employer, and that employer has to understand the rules of the scheme, has to do everything that we're asking you to do with annual returns, everything you have to do regarding administration and so on. So by dealing with more employers, we have certainly more to do. There's no question about that. And I don't want you to feel sorry for us, but the last line clearly says, at that time we had 51 staff in pensions admin, and now we've got 55. We've got more people than that, but this is people who are actually in core pensions admin at the time. So those have increased by hundreds of percent. The staffing has increased by 7%. It's not the whole tale, because clearly we've improved over the years. We've become more efficient. Processes are in place now. We're doing less things in paper form. We're doing more things electronic and all that kind of thing. So it's not the argument winner on its own, but it's just an illustration, and I think it just shows the impact, and that's where, in my head, that's what I'm thinking about when I'm looking at restructuring the team as I am at the moment. The case for change, in reality, is LGPS 2014 is more complicated. It brings an extra layer of complication, and not only that, it brings a greater. If there were ever before that we needed to be accurate with things, with care, we have to be more accurate. It has to be right because it's real money. When we were just final salary, we could say, okay, it's not quite right, but we'll put it right at the end because it only ever mattered when the person left, because you were trying to know what their final salary was. So you could adjust membership, you could adjust the final salary, and as long as you got it right at the end, it didn't matter a jot what had gone off before. But now with care, we're banking money for individuals every single year. And it has to be right in that year, because if it's not, well, it's wrong. And it's in their account. They changed it to a pension account. So a pension account means it's like your bank account. And you don't want your money in your bank account to be wrong. And you certainly don't want your money in your pension account to be wrong. So it brings that added level of complexity that we really need to ensure that everything is right. The statutory deadlines, all right, I'm not going to bang on about that. We know what they are. We've talked about them before. But we have got the pensions regulator looking at us. We always had a bit of a deadline for annual statements, but we just used to get them out when we could. And if we couldn't get them out, it didn't really matter, because it was final salary and it didn't really matter. It did, but we couldn't get them out because the processes that we got in place, the annual returns issues and all that, meant that we just weren't able to do it. And if we didn't, we just swept it under the carpet. Okay, we'll put it right next year. Well, it ain't going to happen now. And this is why and even with our own software, it demands, before we can start next year's contribution posting and making sure everything's right, we've got to have cleared last year. So there's never any kind of situation now where we're allowed to say, okay, well, we'll worry about that later. Because we had some where queries went back years and years. We can't do that now. We've got to solve them all. So if we keep pestering you, because we've got to get it right, because we can't start next year's until we actually get in this year's done in entirety. So we plan. It's about, initially there were, I was taking advice from people and everything else, but in my head there were problems of how we could, because the numbers there at the bottom, the 7%, etc., it's kind of demanding that we need some more people. So it's a case of saying, right, we need more staff. So what I was really struggling with is, well, how do I introduce new staff into the authority, but to have them have an immediate impact? Because you'll know, when you hire somebody new, they know not. Generally, they don't know very much. The way we bring people in is that we bring them in as career grade pensions officers. So they start at the bottom level, and they have then a career grade that they can work through, which is great, because we can keep them and retain them, because we can promote them through the career grade over a number of years, whilst they're learning the complexities of the job. And it's a complex job. So, they come in and they do the easy stuff first. Well, that immediately brings a problem, because you bring people in and they can only do the easy stuff, but you've got to train them how to do the easy stuff, and it then becomes a bit of a job. Now, when it's one person at a time, that's all right, but if I want to bring additional people in, like I want to do here, then I have to sort of think, well, I'll just put them into the organisation and they'll just disappear. It'll just be like we'll subsume them somehow, and we'll get a little bit of extra effort, but we won't get the impact that I'm looking for. So the idea is, and it unlocks everything else, is to say, right, okay, and here's the big thing, which I know we've been talking about and we've kind of skirted around the edges, is we're going to change from annual to monthly. We're going to ask you all to do your returns, instead of doing it once a year, 12 times a year on a monthly basis. And we're going to have to then reconcile monthly, and we're going to have to ensure that queries are cleared down, and that when before, like a payroll, if you put it like a payroll, we'll have a cycle, and we will get information from all of you, and we will post it to our records. And then when we get to month 12, we will not worry about everything balancing. We will have it all, because month 12 will add to the previous 11 months, and then we're ready to go. Now, I can see, I'm not a salesman, but I can see you're a bit skeptical. But bear with me, because I know that it works. Way that I've got to do it for us is to make sure we can deal with it. It's all right asking you, because if you can fulfill your part at bargain, that's great. But if we can't do ours, then it's going to fall down. So I'm going to create a data team. Now, I went to the Pensions Authority with my report last Thursday, so it's very timely. And the good news is that they agreed. So what I'm telling you now has been agreed and is going to happen. We're actually going to feverishly working in the office to get job descriptions done, evaluated, and recruitment on the way. But the data team idea is the key that unlocked it all for me, because instead of going our usual route with career grade and people learning all the job from the ground up, is we were going to bring people in and we're going to bring them in for this specific thing alone. So they'll be recruited as data analysts, tasked solely with the intention of making sure that the contributions that we receive, posted to the members' records, are reconciled, working with our accounts people to make sure everything balances, and then moving on to the next cycle. Where there's queries, clearly queries will be raised. But that there, in that sole thing, just unlocked it all, because it's like, right, we bring them in, we train them, for sure, and there's a lead-in, and I'll come on to the lead-in in a sec, but once they're trained, they can be very much useful to us immediately and doing the work that we want them to do without being lost within the rest of the team. The effect that has on the rest of the team is great, because they can concentrate once again on what they want to do anyway, which is to service and support our scheme members, to be able to process cases on time, to be able to not have backlog situations, to be able to sit and talk to members on the phone so that they can sort their queries without worrying, oh, I've got to be doing annual returns and I've got to be doing other things. So we hive off the data team led by some staff that we would identify internally, would then carry out this function. So that's an important thing, and that drives the rest of it. The last review we took was 1997, 20 years ago, nearly 20 years ago. I took up this job in 2011, and I'd said then that we were looking at, I said to the staff, we need to restructure. Before I retire, I'm going to restructure, is what I said. And essentially, things conspired, because ultimately things came along that didn't allow us the time to do that. But this last year, the pressure has built, and here we are. So the performance manager, there's a few things as well. So I said that we've done rather than just plonking a contributions team in and saying, all right, well, I've done, that's it. We'll look a bit more fundamentally at what we're doing. And the performance manager comes from a point where I want someone in place that monitors all aspects of our workload. We get case work coming in from all angles. We get lots of different priority type work coming in and things like that. And we need to have someone in place. This is not an extra post. This is someone that we will find from within the organisation. But what I'm trying to reassure you with here is that where we might have slipped on our game a little bit in terms of providing the service to scheme members, for good reason, it's not going to be allowed to continue, and we will be able to shift the work around. So if we've got a team that's short on numbers because we've got absences, we will move work around dynamically. If we've got a team that is overloaded with work because their particular employers are doing an exercise of some sort, we will move things around in that direction too. So it's something that I think we've needed for some time, and it will be of great benefit to us as it comes along. UPM stands for Universal Pensions Management. That's what we call our system that we use. So that's why I put pension system in brackets there. Latterly, we brought the system in, and we thought it was a system that when we bought it that we could perhaps just set off and work in the background. Well, it don't work like that. It needs some human interaction to make it do everything that we want it to do, and for us to get the best out of it. And we created a team which we attached to our technical team, but essentially that doesn't work because we've not been able to major on technical, or we've not been able to major on UPM because we've been doing too much of both. So effectively, my UPM manager that will come in will head up a team that will then get the best out of the system for us. We've added to technical compliance and training. Compliance to factor in the regulator and making sure that if there are any breaches of regulator code of practice, that we're able to report on them and be aware of them and make sure that we're on top of everything in that way. The district officers, many will know that we have satellite officers in the 4 districts in South Yorkshire that provide a service out of officers working within the district councils. For many years, they've really been focused on the district council themselves. So they've run advisory services where other people have come from other employers. But aside from that, they've concentrated on helping the work of those particular district councils. But as we know, as academies have been created and gone out of the LEA, the employer base is shifting and so on. And so what I'm wanting to do is to bring into those job descriptions for the district managers the ability to cover an area. So instead of, say we're based in Sheffield, instead of just looking on Sheffield Council, it will be employers in the Sheffield area. And to provide a service to those. And that will expand their ability to provide a service to you, the employers. But it can only happen once we get the trade-off here, which is the data flow in monthly and everything else. I'm doing it now to future-proof these, but it's going to come on stream over time. Different employers will go at different speeds. So it won't impact it immediately, but it will come. And I think that will strengthen the role. If we do more of the sort of electronic and immediate communication in relation to data, less should be needed in relation to hand-holding and queries and things like that takes place, and more about looking and providing training and providing a service to you, the employers. So that's a yet to come, but it's certainly in the offing. So we're going to do monthly posting, but we can't do it immediately, as I say. So we've got to get a bit of a timetable going here, and these are the things that we need to look at. So for 17-18, we get the new structure in place. So this is what we're doing at the moment, and we're aiming to get that up and running from April 17, and get new staff in place and internal staff in different posts where necessary by then. But we'll still have 16-17 returns. So please, the deadline's still the same. Please do what we've asked you to do, and beat that 94% or whatever it were that we had last time. We'll need to prepare you. So, we were talking earlier about maybe doing some training and things like that, but this is going to require that. So we will be doing employer preparation. I'm doing it now. I'm preparing you. But we need to be actually a bit more hands-on than that, and getting you up to speed with the various things that we will need you to do, which will be a totally different return. And we may need to talk to payroll providers, or we will need to talk to payroll providers, and the like. So we've got a busy time, but it's going to take place in that year. We're going to start doing some selected monthly posting where we can, with the returns that we get. We're going to try and do something with the employers that we feel that are sending us enough information already to try and start doing that. That means internally we can practice about doing our system on a monthly basis, because that's going to require a monthly process. So, that's the main reason for doing that. But it will enable that employer, perhaps, or whoever they are, will be further along by the time we get to 31st of March than with the others who are still sending the annual returns. So we'll work with those. At some point in time, when we feel we're able, we will come to employers and ask them to participate in some electronic, proper monthly posting. So where we'll ask for a return in the format that we will need, and we will start the actual testing of uploading our system with proper monthly posting. We've got to try it. We can't just come 1st of April and say, yeah, it's going to work, because it probably won't. So we've got to find out what the bugs are and what the problems are, because I'm good at thinking things in my head, It's actually when it comes to reality, there's loads of things I've forgot, and there's problems that arise and things like that. So we've really got to iron all that out in the year. And then as it gets closer to the end of March 18, we've got to be starting to get the setup with all employers. We've got to make sure that we're out there talking to you. So if we don't visit you very often, we might start to visit you a bit more often, and certainly during this period. It's a partnership. It's going to happen because we can ask for in the format that we want. So we can't have you turning around and saying no. So please don't try. But we'll certainly work with you, and we will do all we can to try and make sure that we meet your requirements so that you can meet ours. And then the day is going to come, on April 18, we're going to go for it. And at that point, we'll still have 17, 18 annual returns. So it don't go away immediately because we've done 17 and 18 annually. So we'll still have to do that. So, yet again, please send it by end of May and all that. But we'll start the live implementation. So it's scary, and I know it's scary. But I'm stood here with full of confidence because I know that it works. And I know that it works because the background to that is that our software supplier, we have a user group, and just so happens that the user group was in Bradford, and they, West Yorkshire Council, West Yorkshire Pension Funds, should I say, already do this. And they've been through it, and they took us through it. So what I'm going to do now is there's a case study, which basically is me being lazy and stealing West Yorkshire's presentation. So I'm going to do it, but not like West Yorkshire, clearly. But I'm going to do it by picking out what I understood from what they were saying. So I've got all their slides, they're not ours. Like I say, I'm a bit lazy, but we've basically got what they presented us on that day, but it filled me with confidence because they're doing it, and if they can do it, we can do it. They're a bigger fund than us, to be honest. They're more employers, and so therefore we know we're not talking about a concept here, we're talking about reality. It's just the hard work that we've got to put in to get us there. I'll not remember everything they said, so I might skip over a few bullet points where my memory's a bit hazy and stuff like that. But the reason I'm doing this is to hopefully to reassure you that it can be done, and it give you a bit of a flavour for how they did it and so on. So excuse me because I don't know these slides as well as I would know what I'd be talking about on my own, so I might have to keep picking up. But I think here what they're giving you is the reasons why. So we've covered these, haven't we? Because as a career average, it's important to get the data in and so on. The 50-50 option is a bit of a red herring for us in the sense that I think Government Actuary Department, when 50-50 was launched, you all know what 50-50 is, don't you? The cut-down version of the scheme. And when it was launched, the Government Actuary Department felt that 10% of members would join it, which at the time I raised my eyebrows at. But in our fund, it's like 0.1%. So it's really not an option. And of the 0.1%, most of them aren't the people that you think. They're high earners, the people who are trying to avoid tax. They're not people who are trying to pay a lower contribution for a lower benefit because they can't afford it. It's completely been misused. Whether or not it stays is another matter. Data governance, that's the regulator. This is all the things. I mean, and I'm just as keen as data as anybody else. It's just, having somebody stood above me kind of watching me, what we're doing with data, just adds that extra bit of pressure. But it's about making sure we get good data in and stuff like that. Employers covenant, that means, the strength of the employer and the ability to pay and everything. And so if you're getting a closer relationship with them on that, I think that's working with them monthly means you're a bit closer to them than leaving them be for a year and not having any of that contact. I think it just allows you a little bit more knowledge of what they are. they were sort of keen to highlight that this is not a special project, this is life, this is how we go on from now, business as usual. And so once it becomes part of the concept, once it's a part of what we do, it is. It's not anything, you know, if I were here 5 years from now, and I might not be, but, you know, it wouldn't be a conversation we'd be having. We might not be able to have forums that look about other things other than contributions and things like that, because it just basically is just done. And it is more efficient. We're not chasing a sale. I mean, you know this, but if we get things and we find them on year end, we come into you with queries that might have happened. So say we're looking in June, it might have happened previous April. So you're then scratching, not the previous April, the previous April. And you're scratching your head thinking, well, what happened there? Why did this go wrong? Why didn't we do that? Whereas if you're doing it monthly, well, if we get it in May, we're asking about stuff that's happened in April, and so on. So it's all current stuff. Answers should be easier to get, and therefore you're more efficient. So how we implement it, so this is their timetable. So it kind of lends itself to ours. So they started talking to employers, get the approval in July 13. In September 13, started talking to the large employers with meetings, visits and roadshows. So that's an indication of what we got to do. And I'm fully up for that. You know, we've got to do that, and we want to do that. And, you know, you're great because you're here. And I'm, you know, apologies for everybody out there that's watching this, but I don't think there probably will be. You know, we made it available. I mean, but you've come, but, you know, out of the 390 odd employers, I think we've probably got 30 odd employers represented here. You know, so, you know, I'm talking to you, but we need to be talking to everybody else as well. November 13, it's rolling it out forward. And then they start the business in April 14 to actually get things moving. So they've got less time by the looks of it than we are putting in here, which is not to rest on our laurels because it's going to be a tough job. But nevertheless, that proves to me an employer that size were able to do it. So in terms of monthly posting, clearly you'd know what you need to do. If you look at the size of the number of employers there, I think what they did is brought some employers on at different times, different annual years. But again, it's things we've got to make sure that we give you what you need to know and the ability to be able to do it. At its simplest heart, it's just if you put it on payroll, we get it. So you just give us it and we put it on payroll. What you find is that, for example, new starters, West Yorkshire don't have new starter forms. All they do is they take on the contributions monthly, and if somebody new appears, they create the record. And as long as that information that we get contains all the information we need to create a new record, it's job done. And it's done seamlessly, so it can just go through to our system, upload. We've got a new start on there. Of course, we'll check it. We'll make sure that it's okay. But we haven't gone through all that pain of a form that needs to be scanned in and uploaded and all the rest. So, you know, if it's on payroll and you're putting somebody new on payroll, then we'll get it. And similarly with changes and leavers and so on. System setup now. This is my dilemma at the moment, is I don't know which way to deal with this. West Yorkshire did it themselves, and the good news is that they're on our software platform, so basically they did it with the software we're using, so we can do it. We certainly have got a great IT team, and we can do things, as you know, we created Epic and things like that, so we're able to do that. So the question is, well, do I want to? Because whereas West Yorkshire didn't really have options, I have got options because our software supplier themselves are actually developing a process themselves for West Midlands, who are also on our system. Now, I know West Yorkshire's works. I don't know whether this is going to work, and I don't know how well it's going to work for West Midlands. Their timetable for launch is this April, so I will know that reasonably quickly. And that's an option for me that we could build it that way. But I do know also that there are other players in the market wanting to provide data portals, secure data portals to LGPS funds wishing to go the monthly route. So I've got to assess all that and do it. What they did is they set up a secure website, file transfer protocols, which gave access to the database, gave access for you to be able to upload files, and for those files to be validated in some ways, so it wouldn't let you put rubbish through, it makes sure that it's in the format and everything else. And then it went up to UPM, at which point they could then use the system, and they were then setting up users on the system. So and what they've developed is that they control the user base. We would require contacts from you who would be using it. We would set them up and basically make sure that everything's secure, because clearly with all the data and everything else, it's got to be secure, and we wouldn't want any data breaches or anything like that for sure. They call their monthly posting area a reception for some reason, but that's what they do. As it says there, they created it themselves, and they had some validation on there, so I've got a bit ahead of myself, but that's what I've just said. And then securely testing and everything, and getting the certification which everybody will want to make sure that the data that's passing between us is secure and not subject to any breach. They require a simple Excel file, so that shouldn't be difficult to do. So clearly we'll create a return, it'll be an Excel file. They do some conversions of it. BDI is bulk data interface, that's just a technical term to getting it into our system. They're dealing with errors, issuing out remittances to you just to show that we've got it and that you can relax for that particular month. Original files are all saved. Clearly we want an audit trail and everything else. I mean, we do all this already, but it's just doing it on this process. And the UPM team within West Yorkshire are the ones who actually manage the process. Passwords, all this, I'm not really sure, but they're basically just saying it's secure, which you'd expect. They probably talked about 10 minutes on that, I've probably zoned out, but the engine, as they call it, this is then what they do. So, I'm describing utopia, and it's all going to work, and then employers send great files across to us, and everything balances and everything. Well, of course, in real world, it's not going to do that. So there's going to be rules set. There's going to be queries dropping out of it. There's going to be some employers that will send us 1 month and then forget to send us a month, and then they'll send us another month, and we're missing a month. And they've encountered that. So what they've built in processes that won't allow anything to be uploaded until a missing month is actually done. So everything's done in sequence. And that's obviously seems to make sense. So that everything is sequential processing through the end. And then obviously there is a year-end thing where you just add it all together at the end. So the teams and that deal with file load errors. They showed us a big workflow where it outputs to errors to a file. And they were showing us live files while we were there, and they had Wakefield Council, which had 8,000 members on it, and it was that month, and they'd got 73 errors. So the team that were looking at it were just dealing with 73 errors out of 8,000. So it meant that practically all of those members had got posted in that month, and they were just dealing with 73, which I'm sure they then dealt with, and then took it on to the next month. And that again is kind of like reassuring, because you wouldn't want to be posting 8,000 and have 4,000 errors, would you? So it seems that it's scalable once it's done right. It's uploaded to the monthly history view, and that's great, because what it means is that if a scheme member comes to us partway through the year and says, I want a quote and stuff like that, we've got their care, depending on where we are in the year, we've got a history view that says what they've paid that year. We don't necessarily need to come and ask you now for an up-to-date pay figure for a quote, because we will have it. We'll certainly have it for the last 12 months going back once we've built enough history. So we'll always have a year's worth, not the current financial years, but once we've had the first full year in, we'll always have a year's worth of data to be able to do quotes and things like that. So again, that's good. The addresses bit was a bit about saying, well, they don't tend to, they're a bit careful over writing addresses, because members tell us of a change of address, but they might not tell you. And so we might change our records, and then your records will come and change it back again, and we'll then go in around a big circle. So there were a bit of a process around what they did with addresses, which we'll look at. All kinds of stuff that it picks up, but the things is it's picking up leavers and hour changes and new starters in the way that I mentioned. And the bit on web trades is something I mentioned earlier about employer web trades when I talk about queries coming to you. What it doesn't do at the moment, and for them what is their key thing next, is where you pick up, so the payroll, you'll take somebody off the payroll because they've left. So it'll have a leaving date on there. That says to us, that's the leaver. So what they want in the system to do is to generate the leaver form and then shoot it across to the employer, all automatically, to say, right, you've told us this person's left, tell us why, and tell us their last 12 months pensionable pay for care and final salary. So it immediately creates a process here for us that we know that the person's left, but immediately then goes out to your work trade, so whoever your people are that will be using the system, it will go to them. And again, that means that we won't have missing leavers. We won't, I mean, we've said we were good at retirements, and we are, but early leavers, we're not so good. And that means that we get told a bit after people have left and so on. This will tell us in the month that they've left. The thing for them, as we say in here, is they get the year-end return, March due 19th of April. It means that basically they can start preparing for the annual statements. Then bear in mind we were looking 9th of August-ish. Basically, they, don't know what it says in there, but no, it doesn't, but it might be next slide. They actually started getting their statements out in May. So that's what we're all looking to do, and without any real pressure. Yes, they will have some employers that don't play ball, but for virtually most of the fund, they were able to start doing that. It's also improved data for the validation because it's always more up to date. So less valuation queries, better valuation data means better valuation result. And that, of course, is essential for when you're talking about the contributions that you pay and deficit recovery and so on. Better data for us to provide quotes to members, less faults where we've used data, given somebody a quote, then they come to retire and the quote's nothing like their actual's nothing like their quote. And in those circumstances, sorry, this is the right position, where the member may have then relied on the earlier figures and so on. And the overall efficiency and everything else that's in there. Yeah, so these are the things that they get up to. So they're managing it. So this is what our team is virtually involved in. So I'm like, the job descriptions I'm writing are looking at these sort of aspects and these kind of duties that will ensure that we're not just taking files and not doing anything with them. Certainly, we do this clearly, but already. But where there's missing payments, where things are wrong, there's got to be interaction, and that's an immediate thing. It's gonna be, like I said, it's a bit like a payroll. So they're going to be doing it on a monthly basis. And the guy that presented it was probably a bit tougher than I was, in the sense that he came across that he came out to employers and he wouldn't take no for an answer. So where employers weren't complying, I don't know whether he had a baseball bat or something like that, but he came across as being, yeah, this guy's forceful and he would do that. hopefully we don't get there, but I mean clearly if our employers aren't, then we need to try and make sure that we get everything that we need to get. So the size of the thing, they were talking 640 employers. So we asked them, or I asked them, well, how many staff have you got? And the good news was that although it was more than we're going to have, proportionally it was about right. So the numbers that I'd got in mind, so we'll have 6 plus our accountancy team. So there's 3, is there 3 of you that would do it? 9 in total? 6 plus 3? Yeah. So that's 9. They had 13. So essentially, based upon the proportion different, we can do this. And all those things down there in terms of the various things I've probably covered already. So these are the types of things that we want on the data. And you would expect all this, but we perhaps don't get it all at the moment, and I think that's where we need to talk to payroll providers. Again, with 640 employers, I think, unless anybody has made their own payroll up in our fund, they will have dealt with those payroll providers. So hopefully, you know, the big ones clearly are doing it anyway, but where there are different outsourced payroll providers, hopefully they've encountered them all and will be aware of this, and they're doing it. So again, yes, there's some dialogue I have to have with them and so on, but it's happening, and it's happening here. So yeah, I mean that again, 95% of records auto match, because we always have difficulty matching, as you know, because the scheme's complex. People have more than one job. People have 3, 4, 5 jobs and things like that. So it's important to keep track of all that, and that's not easy to do. But doing that by 95% is reasonable, with 5% matching falling out of that during that. Because it is reconciled to cash payments, so we know we're balancing. That's the important thing. So the return that you're sending us must balance. And they've then got real-time reports that they'll come out to you as employers. So it's going to be happening. It's not going to be happening once a year. It's going to be happening once a month. So so this is where they said basically what they were doing. So they got everything done by 28th of April, posted to member records 4th of May, and they started production on 5th of May. Well, that's utopia to me, and hopefully to scheme members and yourselves alike. I mean, it probably won't work like that first year, but ultimately, that kind of thing is all the proof we need that says, right, this is what we've got to do, and provide to our scheme members. How they produce theirs, because I think they've got a big printing department within Bradford that they use as opposed to outsourcing it, is that they do them in tranches. So as employers are ready, they go and then they send them in that way. We've got things to think about as to how we'll do that ourselves in the future. But certainly, as we've seen, it's achievable. That were their questions, not for you. No, you can ask questions. So I'm laying this out to you now, because we're going to do it. And this is the first time, clearly, you've heard me say this, and this is the start of the consultation in terms of getting us there. This is the start of the communication and everything else. But give me your immediate reactions. I don't care. You can say what you like, but, you know, what do you think?
Thank God.
Yeah? Oh, well, that's good.
Absolutely.
Yeah?
We have so many changes. We're now going back.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I don't need that.
No, just so everybody else that's watching can hear you say that you think it's brilliant.
Yeah. No, it is. It's a good idea. It is good.
Yeah.
Because I balance mine every month now.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, we're struggling at end of year.
Yeah.
And it does help us get us returns in earlier because there's information's there. And we just sort of, by February, we just add in March to it then.
Yeah.
Exactly the same as balancing as HMRC.
Right. Yeah, it's good. So it becomes a cycle, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You're just doing it, aren't you?
The one question is, just consider having a over-declared and an under-declared for each month, so that it enables you to help you with your 365 days, rather than unders and overs being added to one particular month.
Okay, I don't really know what you mean by that, but...
Well, if something's... If somebody overpays or underpays a
Oh, I
pension
see.
through an error,
Oh, I see.
just
That's...
like under and over declared on VAT, such like,
Okay.
just so it's highlighted,
Okay.
rather than it's in a big lump.
All right, okay. Take that on.
That's it.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else want to support that view or alternative views?
I'm already working with our other scheme on doing this. We're currently in process of testing it now.
Yeah.
So it's something that we need, because
Yeah.
my biggest worry out of it all is the amount of resource I'm going to need each month
Yeah.
to deal with the queries. But I'm hoping as time goes on, they get less and less. And we can
As data
eliminate them.
improves, then, yeah, it will obviously be less queries, won't
Yeah.
it? Yeah.
But that's my only worry going
Yeah.
forward, is that initial maybe first year, how many admin queries, how much resource I'm going to need
Yeah.
in order to complete each file by each 10-day cycle.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely 100%, and definitely need to get rid of those year-end returns.
Brilliant, brilliant. And internally for us, I mean, I'm bringing new people in, but in the first couple of years, the people who have been doing it already are still going to be in that, because we have got the same resource issues. You can't just bring new people in and say, right, get on with that. We've still got to deal with, as I showed you, the previous returns. So it's a bit more pain to come until we can get there, but yeah, that's the direction. Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you. Well, we will circulate anyway and ask him, but yeah, that's great. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Are we time for lunch, Joe? Is it Joe? Yeah, okay, great stuff. Well, this afternoon we've got the actuary that will be able to go through the valuation and answer any questions on that. So enjoy your lunch, talk to our staff and everything else about any other issues you want, and we'll see you back for whatever time it is. Thank you very much.